Yeah, bro, it looks like Hollywood is just about done. And we've been talking about this for like the past 5 years, but it's getting so bad that even the mainstream media is picking it up. That's how you know it's bad.
Hollywood is very much a factory town.
Yeah.
And the widget that we make is entertainment.
Yeah, at one point, entertainment and culture was one of our best and most popular exports. America was such a fun place that when we would make this entertainment, it would go out to other countries and they would see that we're having so much fun that they said, that's cool and that's something I want to replicate. Somewhere along the line, we let too many losers have a say in which direction our culture should go. And if there's one thing about a loser, it's that they hate to see people having fun. And so they started to make movies that was unrelatable to the human experience. And when you talk about the rest of the world, most of the world just doesn't subscribe to these progressive messages that they started to push repeatedly. Nobody asked for it.
Everyone is creative, from the directors to the writers to craft service. Everyone has a talent.
Yeah.
Some people come out here sort of on accident and find a place inside of the circus, and I think that some people are kind of called.
Yeah.
Pilot season, upfronts, awards campaigns. Hollywood moves in cycles. But now, the cycles have slowed a lot. It's a reset.
Nah, I think calling it a reset is a little bit of denial. I think that it's over with. Like, there are some things that they couldn't control, like the introduction of AI and the fact that kids are now spending more time on their phones and, you know, they might be less receptive to movies, but it certainly didn't help that they kept pushing out stuff that people obviously didn't want. Like, the issue is there's always going to be a market for good storytelling. Most of human history has to do with stories, whether they be biblical, whether they be like myths, whatever it may be, humans are engulfed in good stories. So there's always going to be a market for good stories, but they just refuse to put out good stories. So the downfall of it was definitely caused by a few things that they couldn't control, but it certainly didn't help that they pretty much sped run it. They ran in that direction.
If you spoke to the average worker in Hollywood, you'd hear existential dread.
Well, those are the people I feel bad for.
The new baseline is.
If you spoke to the average worker in Hollywood, you'd hear existential dread. You've seen a pretty dramatic reduction in output, a lot of layoffs, fewer jobs. So it's just been a dark period.
Yep.
Los Angeles has visibly turned into what I would call a ghost town.
Well, they use like the same 5 actors and actresses for every movie now.
Employment in California's motion picture industries peaked in 2016, but was decimated by the pandemic. And despite a surge in streaming, the actors and writers' strikes meant a massive loss of jobs that show no sign of coming back. Big tech disruption, mega mergers, and the looming threat of AI has left Hollywood in shambles.
What are you doing? You can't help these people. Are you insane?
I never thought this crap would happen in my lifetime. We're just in this inflection point right now where everything's converging. Not great economics, bad business models, audiences that are fragmented.
Well, who fragmented the audience? Like, you have these comic book characters from all the way in the 50s and 60s, and people just said, we want superhero movies. And what did they get? They got like these emasculated men that eventually got replaced by women. You had like these legacy movies and series like Star Wars and all these things, and what did they do? They just made them gay. And then when they seen the trajectory, they seen that what they weren't doing wasn't working for decades, and what was their response? Their response wasn't, maybe we should reverse this and go back to actually making good movies. Their response was, our audience is toxically masculine. Yeah, like the reason people didn't watch this movie wasn't because the storytelling was bad, it was because of misogyny. So they were getting like real-time feedback from the people and what people wanted to see, but they just didn't care. And it was almost the amount of negligence to get Hollywood to the point that it's at right now seems like it had to be planned, because it got to the point where they knew they were losing money, but they still kept making movies that were losing money. So at some point, to me, it started to feel like they cared more about pushing the political propaganda than they did actually making money. And that's when it started to get murky. It seemed to be more about propaganda. Like, people wanted to be entertained. They went to the movies because they wanted entertainment, and they got a TED Talk. So yeah, it's like if you hate your audience, eventually your audience is going to start to hate you. And I think that Hollywood did a great job at fragmenting the audiences. Hollowed out.
I was just at a meeting on one of the lots, and to not be dodging around forklifts.
Yep, that's what it is. You see the glasses? A lot of these people started to get involved. This exact type of makeup, like this whole get up right here, these are the people that started to get involved. And, you know.
It's astounding the lack of production that's going on right now in Los Angeles.
So here we are.
Not talking about her in
with,
particular, but
an empty sound
that
stage,
character.
actually one of the larger ones. As you can see, production has left California.
Yep.
The numbers tell the story. Have a look at total LA shoot days for 2024. Now look at 2025. It's down over 16%.
Yep.
Compare this to 2016, when shoot days were at their recent peak.
Some of it has gone to other states, but the majority of it has gone outside of the U.S. to places like the UK,
Bollywood.
London, places like Australia, New Zealand, and other countries with more aggressive tax incentives.
Goldman Sachs foreclosed on Radford Studios, a very famous film studio in Los Angeles, because it just wasn't making the payments on its debt.
Yep. And why is that? Because they kept putting out shit movies.
This is the story across the industry, and ultimately, the buck stops at the box office.
The movie business is really in a long-term stagnation, at least in terms of cinemas. People aren't going out as much to the movies.
The average American now goes to fewer than 4 movies a year. Just a decade ago, I think that was closer to 5.
Yeah, well, it's because we have movies on demand now. That's partially part of it. But the other part of it is if I go to the movies to spend $20 on some popcorn, I want to be entertained. I don't want to be lectured.
Sales were doing pretty good until, once again, COVID. And they never fully recovered, remaining nearly $3.5 billion lower than 2018. Sure, people don't leave the house anymore, but there's binge watching. That's got to be a bonanza, right?
This was an industry that had a decade-long boom fueled by the arrival of streaming and the growth of new streaming services, Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon, followed by Disney and Paramount Plus and HBO Max.
Yeah, but part of the streaming issue is the fact that they killed the hard copies, right? So the fact that once you got things on streaming websites, it killed hard copies. So when a movie came out, it had to do well right away. There were some movies that used to come out that didn't do well in the box office, but because of the cult following, over time, they can make up a lot of that money on the back end with the hard copies that used to sell in stores. But with the streaming getting involved, you no longer have the hard copies. And I think it also has a cultural effect. I think that having hard copies makes people get more invested into the story. And when people are invested into the story, especially if it's a good movie, that's how you get cult followings when it comes to movies. Like when all you had was all you could afford in terms of the movies that you bought. Like I remember being a kid and rewatching movies over and over and over again because those were just the ones we had on DVD. Now it's like more of an on-demand system. So after you watch a movie, unless it has an insane amount of rewatch value, it just kind of just goes to the next movie, right? You just go on to the next movie. Like a movie that had rewatch value was a movie that was so good as a movie and it kept the politics underneath it to the point that if you watched the movie and you enjoyed the movie, you would keep watching it and then eventually you would start to realize the political message that it was trying to relay. Like the political message came second to making a good movie. That's how Hollywood used to operate. Nowadays, it seems like the political message, they care more about pushing that message than they do making a good movie. Like cult-like followings were so important. You still got people trying to break down The Matrix to this day because The Matrix was such a good movie on the top end, so it was automatically entertaining, but it was so entertaining, you would go back and rewatch it, then you would start to notice all the small political things or small little Easter eggs that you haven't noticed before, and you keep rewatching it and keep rewatching it. There are still people to this day trying to break down The Matrix and trying to figure out the deeper meaning in The Matrix. But Hollywood stopped caring about that. They started to care more about the political message than they did making an entertaining movie. And you're not going to have any cult classics when it's just like political propaganda, bro. People want to be entertained first and foremost.
And it was like, let's spend as much money as possible on movies and TV shows so we can get as many customers and win this streaming battle.
That came to a crashing halt in 2022.
Everyone was losing billions of dollars, and then in 2023, you saw the strikes by actors and writers.
Shut it down!
And that was really a turning point because the studios figured out they could get by with a whole lot less. So they cut staff, they cut their spending on movies and TV shows.
Yep.
You're in bad shape.
And they started remaking the same movie because creativity requires investment, and because the investment was so high and they were bleeding out so much money, they couldn't afford the risk. So instead of making good movies or new movies, they started to just remake the same franchises over and over again. And not only did they remake the same franchises, every series, every new progression in that direction became a little bit more like gay and feminine.
Yes, Hollywood is very fancy celebrities. There's a lot of very wealthy people who are very fabulous.
A lot of
but
freak-offs,
the
too.
People that I know, they are writers, they are producers, they're directors, they're grips and electricians, and they are trying to pay rent.
And those are the people I feel bad for. I feel bad for the guys, the sound guy, or the lighting guy, or the electrician guy, or the electricity guy. Like, I feel bad for those guys who invested so much into being in this environment, but then because the higher ups decided to make shit movies, now they're out of a job. And all of the higher ups, the people who decided to make these movies, are so paid that they have no investment into actually having this ecosystem continue.
They're trying to keep food on the table.
Actually brought my own slate, so
Oh.
there.
Yeah, that's okay.
In the last 25 years, I've done production sound for everything from broadcast news to feature films. Check.
And the Oscar goes to Whiplash.
Thanks,
Cool.
Mike and Dave. I won the BAFTA
Whiplash was a
and
good
the
movie.
Oscar for
That was
best
a good
sound
movie.
mixing for Whiplash.
That was a great movie.
Compared to the heyday, things have gotten pretty bad. In 2025, I had 10 union days of work. You could say that I'm a canary in a coal mine because when sound people aren't working, it means that nobody's working.
Yeah, it's a good point.
I'm a writer for television and movies. It's been very, very, very difficult. The industry you worked in changed fundamentally overnight. I've had to take a demotion and go back to working as an assistant, the level that I was at before I became a staff writer.
I went from being at the top of my career, and then all of a sudden the rug was pulled right out from underneath. Not just me, but everyone I know. And it's heartbreaking. I've had to take a lot of step backs. I work part-time at World Market.
Wow.
You know, I got a seasonal job there during Christmas, and thank God they decided to keep me.
Yeah, unfortunately, you got to get a real person job now.
A lot of people are digging into their retirement savings. You have to live.
Amidst this ominous lack of work, major studios have been trending towards mega mergers for their survival, which, needless to say, isn't helping.
There's been one big deal after another. The companies that have done the big deals have generally suffered from a profitability perspective, but also just from a stock price perspective. And people are really worried about too much consolidation.
Well, in my point of view, I lose a buyer. You look at Netflix, you look at Warner Brothers, you look at Paramount, you look at Fox, they're all buyers. While Warner Brothers can still run as Warner Brothers always ran, I'm losing places that I can take content to. And then, of course, you have job loss as well. Then you have studios restructuring. It's a never-changing cycle.
What's eating you?
There's little doubt that the culprit behind all this change is tech.
Yeah, that's part of it. I feel like they're talking about everything other than the actual issue, and that's the cultural response and backlash to what they've been putting out. So it's more of the same blame tactics, right? It's just, oh, well, Hollywood failed not because we didn't make good movies. It failed because the audience or because people couldn't afford, blah, blah, blah. But they're not talking about the core issue, and it is that they put out bad stuff for a very long time.
You have a camera in your pocket with a phone. All this editing software is cheaper than it used to be. And AI should only accelerate this because it's just going to be much easier for people to make stuff. There's more content being produced and released than ever before. We're all exhausted by it. And that puts a tremendous amount of power in the handful of platforms that have audiences.
This is a profound period of change in an industry. It's not unlike maybe what newspapers have been through, radio.
Tech comes in and they break these existing models that have worked for, decades. Happened with Airbnb, it's happened with Uber. Money is flowing upward to a
Well, Airbnb ruined their stuff because they just had too many hidden fees, right? So they have to take account for the part that they played in their own demise. Like, at that point, it got to the point with Airbnb where, yeah, at first it was cool. It was nice. You get your own house. You get to stay in there with your buddies. But then, like, there were complaints about noise too often when you weren't making too much noise. They tried to basically make you become the housekeeping for the Airbnb. And then it got to the point where it's like, okay, well, if we're going to have to deal with all these hidden fees, we might as well just stay in a hotel, right? And so it just went full circle. But for a while, Airbnb had the hotels on their back leg. But again, like, you have to account for the part that a lot of these companies and industries have played in their own demise.
concentrated point at the top. Everybody in the ecosystem, from the end user to the provider, ends up suffering. And that's what happened in Hollywood.
You're under the age of 18 years old. The majority of what you watch is on TikTok and YouTube. YouTube owns over 13% of connected TV audience, which has grown year over year significantly.
Yeah, but if you look at the base of YouTube, you're not seeing mostly, for the vast most part, big production. Like, you might have like a Mr. Beast, they're like some of those guys at the very top, but all YouTube is now is pretty much relatable takes. That's all you had to do was make something relatable. Like, Sound of Freedom did well because it related to the human experience and exposed something, a dark part of the world that people felt like they needed to know about, and it was important for people to hear about, right? Sound of Freedom, it didn't take a lot of money to make that movie that did well in the box office, and that was pretty recent. So even if you look at like something like the success of YouTube, it goes to show some of Hollywood's downfalls because YouTube isn't big production. Like, I'm a one-man team. I have a camera and a microphone, and I give decent takes, and so people will watch over the long form because of that fact. So to use like YouTube as an excuse, majority of the creators on YouTube that people watch don't have like big budgets for this stuff. It's just a guy in a microphone giving decent takes that are relatable to the human experience.
A closer look at the data. Here's Nielsen's numbers for how much TV time YouTube has been grabbing from the streamers between 2022 and 2025.
Movies are no longer the center of Western culture the way that they once were. I think that that's pretty evident and apparent in a lot of consumer behavior.
The days of the A-list star system that carried the box office isn't tracking anymore.
There's no longer like the gatekeepers of Hollywood. That's the beauty of the technology that we're in right now, is like it kind of opened the aperture to allow anyone to create. Because some of those storytellers are so good, they're getting a lot of attention on YouTube.
The good thing is you can publish.
You heard that? The storytellers are so good, they're getting attention on YouTube. You have $500 million budgets with $50 million budgets, $100 million budgets. I don't even know what's a good budget for a movie. But what I'm saying is you have these multi-million-dollar budgets and you can't compete with the guy that's making short films. It's because he has good storytelling. That tells you exactly what you need to hear.
Anything you want. The bad thing is you're not being compensated for it. It is a massive grind in order to monetize that. For every Mr. Beast that's out there really crushing it, there's a million other creators that are never being seen.
It's very lean in terms of how all these creators are actually getting stuff done.
He said, "Hey, stop playing hero. Nurse, she's not even on staff here."
One camera operator, one editor, maybe a production manager. There's no like sound person. There's no crew.
Microphone.
And I think
This is my sound
it's been
guy.
a hard transition.
And even these scaled down productions could go the way of the dodo. AI's ever-evolving image creation is poised to remove the need for sets, cameras, crews, even writers and actors.
There is no way but force.
I know a few managers that are driving Uber.
I've been struggling with a plan, to be honest.
Do I feel like this is the end of my career as an editor? I don't know.
There is some light at the end of the tunnel, and that is content remains king. Even though big franchises still dominate worldwide revenue, smaller budget films are hitting a sweet spot and finding big audiences.
Yeah. The heart of the business will always be storytelling. So it's a struggle for the people who depend on these big budget movies, but really an opportunity for people who are creative and get creative about the tools they use.
Yep. Yep.
I believe that independent film is the beating heart of Hollywood. People are creating and they're making things and there's movement. I am getting more business inquiries than I can keep up with right now. And to me, that indicates that people have a fire inside of them. They're not willing to let the business die.
The shift isn't theoretical. Companies like A24, valued at $3.5 billion, have demonstrated that disciplined budgets and bold storytelling can outperform the old studio playbook, turning indie films into box office wins and cultural touchstones. But studios are still doubling down on brand safety. In 2024, the top 10 highest grossing films were all franchises. 2025 saw even more expansion into pre-existing IP.
Yep, but how long can you do that for before it eventually gets weird? Like, right? There are some things that should just end in their glory. You have to have an ending. Sometimes things just have to end while they're on top, and dragging it out to milk it for money is just, it's anti-human, bro.
If indies are going to make a dent, it's going to be because audiences demand it.
We need to make less Marvel movies. We need to make more great movies.
Yep.
Great stories.
There you go.
It's going to be smaller. I think it's going to remain a scrappy industry where people who are really passionate about it are going to continue to create opportunities for themselves.
People are still reading. People are still optioning. People are still taking in content.
As long as we keep doing our job and are given the opportunities to create at a high level, I do think that it will still hold an important place in culture in the long run.
Who would have thought that making entertainment that wasn't entertaining wasn't going to work in the long run? Let me know in the comments below if this video is a W or L, and give it an HBO special. That's Help Brother Out special. Hit the like and the subscribe button for more content. Till next time.